We got a perverse number of viewers in the chat. 69. 69 viewers. That's very interesting. Omoshiroi. Now, I can't curse within the first 5 to 8 seconds. New YouTube rule, allegedly. I generally do not understand these content creators that freak out, right? Because they do not read the terms of service, but then they hear someone say something and they think it's intelligent, so they copy it. If you actually read YouTube's guidelines, it says that you cannot curse within the first 15 to 30 seconds. And now they actually shortened it, so it's better now. You can curse more. I do not understand what's with Americans and cursing. I think like most other countries that I know, and I know about a couple, cursing just doesn't matter. I mean, in America, you even have words that are so offensive you're not supposed to say. Unless you're black. But in Romania, I don't think that there's a problem with that. I guess like on mainstream television, like if you're on mainstream TV and it's prime time, yeah, they don't curse there. But other than that, and I'm wondering like if they curse, if there's a penalty. Like most people don't curse on TV because... So apparently there's a study which shows that if you curse, you lose 50% of your viewership. Not gonna lie. Like you cater more to the teenage crowd if you curse, but you lose the boomers. It's pretty much how it goes. So a lot of people just try not to lose the boomers and to cater to the teenage crowd by doing other things. Yes. Why the beginning of the video? It's so random. Like you tell me how to start video. You know what? You know what, Doug? Why don't you make a YouTube channel and you start the videos however you like? If you come to my channel, the videos start random. Why should I start them any other way? Curse words are an interesting phenomenon. My teacher back in high school and middle school told us not to curse at each other, but if something was messed up, you could say it's messed up. I don't know. It's so weird. The whole cursing thing, I guess, the way it works, right? Like you're a kid. And there are, like, cursing is a way of venting steam, right? Like, you need to curse. Because if you don't curse, what ends up happening is that you end up doing violence, right? Like, if someone pisses you off, like, really bad, you know, someone breaks your toy, you're a kid, you know, flushes down your R2-D2 on the toilet. Instead of throwing hands, you choose to curse, right? So, like, the thing is that it can end there. It doesn't have to escalate. You just go verbal at someone, and then if that person backs down, you know, you start cursing at them, and they go like, oh, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, blah, blah, blah. The situation ends there. It doesn't escalate further. If you don't have cursing, then the next, you know, logical solution is to start shoving, right? Like, you don't usually throw hands right away, but you start shoving, you start body checking the other person. So, as a kid, you're told that you should never curse under any circumstance, and most kids listen. But then you get to the teenage phase, and the teenage has like this rebellious phase where you do literally the opposite, right? So the moment you leave mommy and daddy, you start cursing like it's a punctuation sign. You use the C word like it's a comma, and eventually you realize that other people don't want to have anything to do with you because you're too cross, you're too rude, you're being a douchebag. And then you start behaving like an adult. So, I guess that's the way cursing works. Or you stew on it for 15 years and show up at school with an AR. I generally like don't understand this phenomenon that's in America. Like why? Right, because everyone is blaming the guns. But what I don't understand is the type of mentality that someone needs to have in order to do something like that. I mean, shit, I was bullied at school, but I never thought about, you know, hey, why don't I, right? Like, even if someone would have given me a gun and would have encouraged me because they're from the feds, I would say, fuck no. Like, I at no point, you know, even when I was bullied by a specific person, I mean, sure, you know, I wanted to, like I had fantasy about standing up for myself, right? And how that fight would have gone the other way. But even with my bullies, like, I never wished them to be hospitalized or anything worse. So, like, what type of mindset does a person needs to have in order to be so fucked up in the head that they do something like that? I genuinely, like, do not understand. And yes, I did curse too much as a teenager. Holy shit. The F word was definitely a coma for me. It was like, end dialogue, begin new sentence. There's a heavy correlation between school shooters and secret services. I have no idea. What was her name? No, it was his name. There is a level of extreme desperation that makes a man to do such things. But I experienced extreme desperation in my life. You know, it's still unexcusable. I don't know. Like, maybe I lacked the proper trauma. You know, like the Joker says, it's like, it takes one bad day, which I did not have. I don't know. But like, again, I always ask, like, why didn't I do that when I was a kid? And I don't know. You read every day the amount of propaganda that is popped on their brains. No, I don't know, because, like, the other people do not read the same propaganda that I do. Right? And even if the newspapers tell you something, it also matters, like, what you have at home. Right? Like all the newspapers can talk to you about white privilege and blah, 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 blah. But, like, you have friends, you have family, you have other contacts. It's not like the newspaper dominate your life. I mean, sure, maybe you can have some individuals where, you know, like, they have liberal parents that have, like, white guilt, and they are afraid of the cisgender heteronormative patriarchy, and because of that, they take it on their son, and, you know, like, sure, like that, but like, how many of those cases are there? No one understands. We're just guessing. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm pretty sure someone understands. But the thing is, it's a lot more profitable to talk about, like, take the guns, than actually discuss the underlying issues. I think it's normal to wish your bullies to feel a lot of pain. Now, putting it into action is a different thing. That is true, right? Like, I like to give the pizza example. Like, you're really hungry, right? You're starving, and you're walking on a street, and then there's this there's this pizzeria in front of you, this restaurant, and it has, like, the pizzas on display, and they smell really nice, but you want to eat them, right? Like, you really want a slice, but as you check your pockets, you realize that you have no money. You're not going to just take a brick and smash the store in order to get the pizza, right? Like, no, you can't control yourself. You know, you walk down the street and you see this lovely lady with a plump ass in front of you, and your pee-pee starts to grow. It's like a compass. It points north, points towards the pleasure island. But, like, you control yourself, right? I mean, that's what separates. This is what the left goes, like, oh, unconscious bias. Like, who fucking cares if I have an unconscious bias? You know, like, even if there's this other thing of thought policing. It's like, oh, if you have a racist thought, like, shut the fuck up. It's none of your business what racist thoughts I have. I can control myself, right? Like, the action is what matters. Like, no one knows what's in my head, so why is it your problem? It literally doesn't offend anyone. It's just like a way of measuring tethans, of finding out reasons to justify why some diversity officer needs to get a paycheck. Like, oh, this guy may have some racist thoughts. It's like, okay, does he have racist actions? No, then shut the fuck up. Don't fucking care. Jesus. He thought about a racist joke. He thought about South Park episode 1. Having a simple fistfight at the back of the school to get over it is no longer tolerated in school. Man, like, the fistfights that I had when I was a kid, right? No one got injured, seriously. Like, no one actually went to the hospital. Overwhelmingly, like 90% of the time, there wasn't even blood. Right? Like what was a fist fight when I was a kid? A fist fight was like you start, bumping into the other person, and then you throw hands, and at one point, you either get grappled or someone falls on the ground, right? And you're like, oh, stay down. And the person stays down, like, okay, and that's it. Right? Like, or maybe, like, you get caught in a chokehold and they twist your arm and you're like, ow, 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 enough, and that's it. And a lot of times, that's how you actually get friends with the person. Like, you have someone that bullies you for a month, and then you go out and you handle it, and then you can even become friends. The helicopter level of parenting, like the culture of extra safety, like, man, I'm so glad I didn't caught it. I am so fucking glad I didn't have to live through that, because I may have ended up being a completely different person. Not to the better, by the way. Fights are taken very seriously nowadays. Again, it depends on the fight, right? Like obviously, if you go with nunchucks, with ninja stars, and or with sticks, that would have been treated differently in my day. Yeah, like if you had like two kids fighting with sticks, yeah, sure, right? Like that would have been a walk to the principal office, calling the parents at school. But if like two kids just had a fight, like they started slapping each other, like even the teacher would have been like, but that's it. Like, it wouldn't have escalated, right? Like, the parents wouldn't even be called. It would be like, oh, boys will be boys, much to the horror and dismay of the feminists. What do you mean boys will be boys? And this is another thing, right? Like, boys will be boys. That doesn't necessarily mean that, like, we're talking about, like, excusing little Billy for doing a gang rape, right? Like, that doesn't mean boys will be boys. Boys will be boys means that, yeah, they can sometimes do a little bit of rough play. They play tug of war. They do some contact sports. They come home covered with dirt because it was raining and they had a tumble. That's what boys will be boys means. Doesn't mean it's like, oh, well, little Billy went and gang raped Susie. Oh, boys will be boys. Oh, no one fucking does that. I've never heard that phrase used in that context. So such a bizarre thing, right? It's like, no, but that's literally what the feminists claim, right? Like, if you go on Google and you look for boys will be boys, they literally say that that's why men end up raping women. It's because their behavior is considered acceptable, right? And it's like, oh, well, every time a boy does something, the parents say boys will be boys, and because of that, they think that they can do anything. It's like bullshit. Fucking bullshit, like the idea of boys will be boys. I will tell you how it happens, right? Like, your mother probably tells you to be home by 9 p.m. And you go out and you play with the kids, you tumble a little bit in the dirt, maybe you got a little bit of a scratch, right? And you go home at 10 p.m. and mother starts crying because she's like, oh, he's not listening to me anymore. He's such a fucking rebel. Look, he came with a scratch. He probably got in a fight. Oh my god, he's going to end up selling cocaine. He's going to end up being in prison. And the father, brings a little bit of rationale into the situation and says, oh, don't worry about it. Boys will be boys. Right? Like, that's literally it. It's like, calm the fuck down. Okay? It's not the end of the world. We didn't fail as parents. That's what boys will be boys means. By the way, we're going to be watching RoboCop after this. I like to remind people we're going to talk about Andrew Tate in 20 minutes. Boys will be boys. My fucking even in that commercial from Gillette, you had that. You like everyone was barbecuing, like all the fathers barbecuing, and they're like, oh, boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. It's like, oh god, Is it like the sissy hypno? It's like, no, boys will be girls. Boys will be girls. Like, what are you? But yeah. So anyway, that's when you say boys will be boys. Okay, he got in a fight. Is there any injury? Like, anyone got to a hospital? No. Okay, don't get in a fight again. That's the end of the conversation. It's not like, oh my god, we have to expel him from school. Oh my god, like, call the police. And by the way, this is another thing, right? A lot of people, like, when I said this, they think that I'm justifying kids getting slapped or whatever. No. But like, look, when I was a kid, this is how I grew up, right? Like the teacher could spank me, literally. Not necessarily. So the way it would work, like, he had this really big stick, that he would use to point at the blackboard. And if you misbehaved, and this happened rarely, but like, you really needed to push it, right? Like, or do something really dumb, like breaking the blackboard or something, right? Like breaking a window at school. Like, you had to really push it in order to piss that teacher off. And what the teacher would say, like, he would ask you to hold your hand forward, and he would slap your hand with the stick, right? It was very painful. Obviously didn't, have any lasting damage. And if you were to go and tell your parents about it, they would probably spank your ass as well, because they would be like, well, what did you do? So, that was how I grew up. But now I understand that in the United States, you're not allowed to do that. That's child abuse, right? So, if you have a child, which I read about, like, there was this girl, she beat a teacher, okay? Like, she literally bit a teacher, like a vampire, like a zombie, alright? Like, she bit the teacher. Now, she got into a fight with another girl from class. The teacher comes up, she bites him. So what ends up happening is that the other teacher, like, they got nothing else they can do, right? Like, they tried everything. They tried talking with her, didn't work. They tried physically restraining her. They're not allowed to do that by law. But when they tried to pull her away from the other girl, they got bitten. So what did they do? They called the cops, right? And you have, like, the scene where the cops come in and they arrest this, I think it was like a 9-year-old black girl or something, right? She's crying. Oh, it doesn't look good on camera, and everyone is horrified. It's like, oh, look at America. Oh, look, the cops are persecuting this black child. And yeah, sure, okay, but like when you read what's happening, and it's like, okay, she assaulted a fellow student, also black, by the way. She bit a teacher. Like, what? The teachers can't do anything in this situation, right? So the only thing they can do is to call the cops. What is the problem? Like, how, right? Like, you wanted a civilized country. You want everyone to be civil. Well, there you go. I know a few kids who punched a teacher and beat a teacher. That actually, so there was this case at the University of Medicine. Well, there was this Muslim guy. I don't know if he was from Pakistan or Egypt. But anyway, so there's this exam at morphopathology. And the teacher sees that the guy in the back row was trying to cheat. And he tells him once, the guy still cheats. Tells him the second time, the guy still cheats. Goes up to him and takes away his paper. And that's when the guy punches the teacher in the gut. And as the teacher, bleh, gets winded, drops his glasses, and then the guy punches him again. Now this was, like I want you to understand, in Romania, like the very concept, especially at the university, to punch a teacher is just unheard of. I don't think I've heard of another case like that. Actually, I did. I'm going to talk about that, but it's almost unheard of. So the guy gets sent to a commission. There's a committee that has a hearing. He says that he doesn't recall the event, right? But he gets deported, right? Like, immediately. I think in less than a week he was back home. I mean, Romania doesn't fuck around with this shit, right? And this is why, like, these cases don't exist almost at all. There was another case with a teacher, and this guy was legit cuckoo. He would fuck students in exchange for good grades, right? So, like if you happen to be a lady, and you didn't know a lot of medicine, well, what wasn't a good thing? The question was like, the grades in Romania are from 1 to 10. And he would be like, do you want a 4 or do you want to be on your 4s? You know, right? So he goes after a woman that, I think she was from Bessarabia. But she was connected to a couple of, I can't call them gang members, but like, basically she was related to some of the criminal underworld, right? So there were 2 events with his antics. Like, one event was when some guys actually put on hoodies and beat the living shit out of him in the parking lot. And he came up the next day with a brown eye and stuff. And everyone knew what happened. And the second time, like, someone bombed his car, but like he actually survived. But like, you know, that was like the only other example of someone harassing a teacher. But like in his case, it was understandable because everyone knew what he was doing. Eventually, the police actually caught him, and he got fired. Like, they wiretapped one of the students that he tried to hit on, right? And it is what it is. It sounds like an anime plot. Man, like, this guy was legit insane, right? Because he had the son, which was at the same age as the students he was trying to fuck. He was literally hitting on his colleagues. It's so fucking disgusting. Like, the man had the problem, because I was saying, look, I understand if you're a teacher, and once in a blue moon, you know, you see this very hot student, you see the Uzaki-chan, and you really like Uzaki-chan, right? It's still unacceptable if you hit on her because of the power difference and whatnot. But okay, you know, it happens once, a moment of weakness or whatever the fuck. But with him, it was every single exam period, 3 or 4 women. Everyone else was pissed, right? Because it's like, I actually had like a news anchor coming up to me, a reporter. And he, you know, like, he wanted me to tell him, it's like, have you ever been to, like, what do you know about this teacher? And I'm like, I don't know, like, he never asked me for anything, you know, he never asked me to go into his office, never asked me to suck cock, I don't know, like, to me, he was like a nice guy. I went to his exam, I knew exactly what the subject material was, I got an A. I mean, I did my best, I studied. And by the way, fun fact, unofficially, like, I knew a couple of colleagues of mine, which happened to be women, who were very upset that this guy got arrested, because now they actually had to study. And I was like, oh, snap. But it is what it is. Tate news in 10 minutes. It's slowly coming back to the title, yeah. It was a big scandal in my town, believe it or not. Studied the wrong kind of anatomy. How did you know it was the anatomy teacher? Max, are you Romanian? Did you follow the news? I should have burst into tears, yes. I don't think it's like a woman moment. Like I imagine the opposite, right? The guy wasn't even that bad looking, but like, imagine you have like this 30-year-old teacher, and she's female, right? And if you do coochie coochie with her, she passes the exam. What would you rather do, study or do the cushy cushy? I don't know. I'm telling you, there would be a lot of men that would choose the cushy cushy. But like, okay, no, like for real now. There were teachers that you could bribe, right? Now, I used to tell other students, like, man, you need to study, because most of the stuff, like for example, if you bribed the teacher for, I don't know, internal medicine, right? And you want to bribe him, but then next year you have to do cardiology. And I told him, it's like, you're not going to bribe the cardiology professor, right? Because those are strict. Now, if you bribe the internal medicine one and you pass the exam, the next year you're going to not know the basics, the fundamentals to learn cardiology, and it's you're going to have a harder time. And I was always right regarding this shit. Not to mention, at the end of the university, you still have to give like a really hard exam, which was the residency exam. And I was telling them, like, you can't bribe that shit, right? Like, it's analyzed by computers, multiple answer. Like, there's no bribe there. Like, go and study. Well, at least, you know, like, sure, if you, you know, you can cheat by, like, looking at a colleague or something and asking around for help, you know, taskete, like, everyone does that shit. But, like, okay, so you studied for a 7 and you cheat a little bit and you get an 8, but you still studied. You fucking bribe the exam, like, just fucking brainlets. I don't understand. But yeah, my point, there were a lot of guys that did it as well, right? Like, they weren't able to perform sexual activities in order to get the grade, but they would be able to pay money in order to get the grade. And I know a lot of them that did. Cardiology goes doki doki. You bribed the organic chemistry professor. I really hated organic chemistry. Fuck that shit. Completely useless subject. Nothing else connected to it. Nothing. It was like, let's study organic chemistry because you're doctors and you need to know it. Oh yes, look now. And the thing was, right? You learn what an amino acid is, and you learn what a protein is, and you learn all this shit. But it's not connected. Like you don't need to know the actual chemical formula for it. God. It was like going to become a doctor, not a pharmacologist. There is no cheating in heart surgery. Thank you, Beastifus. Blah. Hello, Beastifus. And thank you, Glow in the Dark, for the $2. Oh, look, Tefik is there. Organic chemistry had little to no value in our exams. Oh, it was important here. Like to me, it was one of the most difficult things that I had to do in med school because I didn't know any chemistry from school. Like, I slept through that. So, like, now I'm in medicine. I like every other subject, but, like, organic chemistry, it's like, fuck that shit. I hated it so fucking much with a passion. Maybe I will work at Pfizer? I don't know. How so completely useless? You never use it, man. Like, do you think as a doctor you need to use it? Like, why do you need to know the chemical formula of the amino acids? Well, when do you think your surgeon actually uses the chemistry, the organic chemistry? Like, maybe he knows pharmacology, right? And he has, like, some... And most doctors do, but, like, they understand how the pills work and stuff. But they don't know, like, the chemical formula of the pill. Like, no doctor will tell you the chemical formula of penicillin out of the top of his head. Like, he's going to Google that shit. And there's no situation where the chemical formula of penicillin even comes up in the conversation if you're a doctor. Or any other pill for that matter. Like, you generally do not need to know the exact chemical formula. I guarantee to you, like, you take a chemical formula to a doctor, 70% of them are going to be baffled. You don't need it to do medicine. Now, if you want to do pharmacology, that's different, right? Or maybe... No, not even then. I was thinking like research. But like medical research. But no, not even then. Like there is absolutely no need for you to know it. I bet Dr. House would. I don't think even Dr. House... I bet Dr. House would have to Google it, man. I bet Dr. House would be like, okay, you know, he would hire a fucking chemist on his team in order to deal with that. You just don't. I never used a single thing I learned in chemistry after I left school. No one does. It's like one of those things. I like okay, maybe if you're like in the lab, right? So you're a doctor in a lab. No, even then you have computers, right? Like you use reagents, and it's like colorimetric reactions and stuff, but you don't need to know the actual chemical formula of the stuff you're using. That I can't think of a single time or any given situation when a doctor actually needs to know the chemical formula of anything. Do you use algebra or trigonometry? You use algebra when you calculate certain formulas. For example, the body mass index. There was another formula at kidneys. I forgot exactly how it's called. The kidney clearance, right? So when you calculate the clearance, but you usually have apps on your phone to do that. Like you don't actually do them by hand. Now, trigonometry, I don't think you ever use it. I don't know about surgery. Like, no, I don't think they use it there either. Andrew Tate is Romanian. Romanian Crowder. I don't think so, man. Like, you're going to see what I have to say about him in 2 minutes and you're not going to like it. Anything you learned and retained and regurgitated in school goes from year to year. There were a lot of things that I learned in school that I could actually use. So I developed an analytical mind in school, which I think is the most important. But other than that, you learn a lot of trivia in school and stuff that you never use, I guess. I did use the biology that I learned The civic class that I took, it's what got me into law. Like, there are a couple of things you can learn in school. But, like, the important things you don't learn, right? Like, how to pay your taxes, how to start a business, how to write a resume, how to get a job. You don't learn those. Learn chemistry as a doctor is like a chemist learn anatomy. It could help, but 90% of the time, no. No, like, I can't think of a single situation where chemistry would help a doctor. Not one. Not even fucking one. And even when you're, like, interacting with chemical compounds, let me put it this way, right? It's kind of like if you're an IT guy, there's no reason to know how a graphics card works, right? Like, and I'm talking about the just the hardware part, right? So like, you can be a really good IT guy, you can know how to code, you can even be a graphics artist, right? But you don't have to know how the graphics card is made. You don't need to know how the components fit together and like when the electricity goes through the graphics card, what happens. That's literally what the chemistry is the equivalent of, right? Like, you know what a graphics card is. You know the types, and you know which is the best one, and you know, like, what software to use, and you know all of that. But you don't need to know how it's made, what are its components, right? What substances, like, where the rare earth mineral goes, and all of that. Maybe with acids and stuff. No, like, even then, you do not need to know, like, the exact formula of how the acids interact with each other. I think, like, you have the anionic hole, and there's, like, a couple of other things, but like, it's such a superficial knowledge of chemistry that you literally do not need to know chemistry in order to understand that. Like, you can take a guy that never studied chemistry in his life, and it takes like 5 or 10 minutes to explain to him the process, and he will get it. I'm a programmer and I do not know much about computer hardware. Yeah, exactly. Like the only thing you can know is, like, does it work? And if it doesn't turn on, like, why is that? Right? So, like, for example, I know that if my computer doesn't turn on, I would be like, okay, is it the power source? Is it because the fan isn't working? Right? So, like, I can do, like, a bare minimum diagnostic. And if I can't figure it out, I will, like, then go on Google on my phone and try to see if I can find something. And if I can't find anything, then fuck it, I'll just take it to a repairman. But like, you don't need to be an expert in computers to be a programmer, right? You don't need to be an expert in hardware. I'm a graphics programmer, I only care what the card supports. Exactly, right? Like, this is what I'm trying to tell to people. It's kind of like, you know, being a race car driver. You don't really need to know how to build a car. Like, you don't need to know, like, okay, well, maybe you know a little bit about the engine, and maybe you know a little bit about how to diagnose a car, and, you know, like, if it's broken or whatever. But even that, like, you probably don't even need to know that. You just need to know how to drive. It's a completely different skill. As a doctor, does it help to know the Krebs cycle? Fuck no. The only thing that it helps to know about the Krebs cycle is how much ATP is generated, the difference between anaerobic and aerobic creation of ATP. But like, you don't need to know the actual fucking cycle. Which, if I remember correctly, it was like this. Huh? Am I correct? Someone fucking Google it. I don't know how to write that in English. It's acetyl coenzyme A plus, no, it was isocitrate dehydrogenases. Is that like? Fuck that shit. Why do I know this? Why? Get it off my head. Fills me with like brainless knowledge that I don't fucking need. You know, other doctors, they masturbate when they like, oh, do you know I know the Krebs cycle? What was it, like 42 ATP by the ends of it? Let me hold on, let me check. Now I'm curious. Oh my fucking god, I was right. Holy shit. Why do I know this? Look. acetyl coenzyme A, right? And I said ICDH. Pyruvate dehydrogenases. Why do I know this? Why do I get it off of my head? Holy shit. This is creepy now. This is fucking creepy. Do you remember without oxygen? Oh, shut the fuck up. Jesus. I'm actually proud. I am proud I do not remember it without oxygen. Holy shit. You know, like, you go to the exam. Like, imagine this, right? Because you had to know all of this by heart. Like, you had to write this shit on a piece of paper from nothing, right? And you go to an exam, and you write all of this, you don't get anything wrong. If you get one wrong, you fuck up the entire thing, right? So you get it all, and you're happy with yourself, and then the professor goes like, all right, but do you know it without oxygen? And because this is like, okay, so basically what this is how your body produces energy, right? Like, this is the cell in the normal way, right? Like, it produces energy, and this is when oxygen flows through the body. But when you do an intense exercise, right? So you're doing intense cardio, or, you know, you're something happens, and the cell doesn't get oxygen. It can still produce energy, but at a limited capacity, and there's a completely different formula for it, right? So imagine you're writing this, and then the doctor goes like, but what about without oxygen? And you're like, fuck off. Seriously, fuck off. Especially if it's like one of those teachers that, you know, you tell them everything, but then you don't know that one thing, and that one thing for them is really important, and they give you an F. Oh yeah, you learn by osmosis. I learned by osmosis a lot. Like, you put the book under the pillow, and then you sleep on it, and the osmosis happens. Like, all the information from the book passes into your brain. Anyway, let's talk about Andrew Tate. I need to stop titling my streams, man. I need to stop titling so I can talk about whatever the fuck I want. I'll be like episode 1, episode 2. Aerobic is with oxygen or without. Aerobic is with, anaerobic is without. Anyway, fuck. Where did they get the thumbnail though? Like, it's such a weird thumbnail with the girl scratching her chin. Anyway, I found this in the Romanian news. It was 3 days ago, but now I guess the BBC got it. Barely British Corporation got it. Daria Gusa, 16, was still at school when she says she received a private message on Instagram from Andrew Tate, high-profile influencer, almost 20 years older than her. Okay, important to point out, because BBC doesn't point it out, and this is why I'm here, is to provide context. I will give you guys context. The legal age in Romania is 16. However, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's okay. If you're a guy that's 36, no, sorry, 20 years older than her, right, 36. If you're 36 and you're hitting on a 16-year-old girl, you're gonna get beaten on the street, man. Like, people do not, like, even if it's legal, people do not like this shit. I mean, what can you possibly talk with a 16-year-old girl if you're 36? What type of conversation can you even have? Right? So, no, it's not okay. Alright, it is haram. Because even if it's 14 in Portugal, like, okay, if she's 16 and the guy is 20, even then, it's like, very, very iffy, right? Now, if she is, let's say, 20 and the guy is 29, that's different, right? Like, there's an age difference between me and my wife of 8 years, but I'm 37, right? So it's different for us, but it's not okay when she is 16. Definitely not. And again, like, the guy, this is something that I noticed with right-wingers that completely bewilders me. I can name you the right-winger that's a Tate fan and also hates e-girls. Right? Like, he doesn't like Twitch streamers. And I'm like, motherfucker, Andrew Tate was a Twitch streamer factory. Like, he was creating them on the assembly line. That was his model of business. Why are you supporting him? You could talk about anime? I could, I guess. 14 in Japan? I think it's possible. I think, yeah, like, maybe Japan has it. But even, like, so this is another thing, right? In most countries, unless we're talking about Islamic nations. In most countries where the age of consent is low, just because you can do it legally doesn't mean that the parents would accept it, doesn't mean society would accept it. Like, most of these laws are archaic, right? Like, back in medieval time, even in Europe, right, when you had arranged marriages and stuff, people didn't live that long, especially the men, right? Like, you had to go to war. There were military campaigns, there were famines, diseases, so on and so forth, right? You didn't have to go to school, you didn't have to go to university. So a lot of children married very young. Like you had 9-year-olds getting married. This was in medieval time in Europe, right? Now, as time moves on and society advances, we have, you know, these rules, which, by the way, yes, they're arbitrary, because that's why in one country is one way and in another country is another way. But society has changed its sensibilities, right? Like even if the rule in Romania is 16, most people frown on that. Like, the only time it's acceptable is if the guy is 18, maybe 19, right? And it's like, okay, well, it's a 3-year-old difference, that's fine, right? It's no biggie in Romania. But if it's more than that, I mean, even if he's 20 and she's 16, already the parents are like, In Russia, they take you to a one-way trip to the woods. In Japan, the federal age is 14, but the prefectures have higher age of consent. I see. 15 in France, but it's illegal before 18 without parental consent. That is also the case in Romania. I think I have to read the law again, because I'm not sure. I never cared about this shit. But I think it's like, if it's 14 and she's pregnant, if the guy marries her, then he doesn't go to jail. Right? So I have to look it up again, because I'm not sure. But I remember it was something like that. Like if you leave a girl pregnant and then you marry her, the punishment is being removed. I am sure, though, that there is a law against... So there is the crime of seduction. Like, seduction is actually a crime here. And it's written as the person who promises to marry an underage girl, right? So we're talking 16. So you're promising to marry her in order to have sexual relationships with her, but then you do not follow up on that. And if she presses charges, until you are convicted, if you marry her, then you're basically abolished of the crime. Yeah, but like, these things are from time immemorial. I don't know how. I think it's like from Alexandru Ioan Cuza that these laws are made. So we're talking like 100 years in the past. But it was funny, you know, like when you read it. And there's also another thing. Like, if you have sex with a 16 in Romania, there's no perversion allowed, right? And I wanted to take the piss at the university. I remember, like, I made the entire auditorium laugh. Because I asked, like, what is a perversion? You know, and everyone was laughing, and it's like, well, like, if I stick a finger up her butthole, you know, is that going to land me in prison? There was another similar law, I think Norway or Sweden, where so you can't, like, I think it was also 16, like, you can have sex, but they can't watch porn. And the case was that they had sex in front of a mirror, and, like, she saw her reflection, and, you know, like, that's like watching, I don't know. But still, there's a lot of these interesting rules. But the problem that we're having here is, like, I have seen a lot of Andrew Tate fans saying, well, yeah, but 16 is legal. It's like, well, yeah, but he's an adult that is trying to groom 16-year-old girls to do OnlyFans. Right. Now, from a legal standpoint, sure. From a moral standpoint, get the fuck out, man. Like, you're looking at this person as a guru, as a, like someone who you want to be influenced by. Like, when you're going to have a daughter, is this the type of people that you want her to interact with? Like, do you think this is a pillar of the community? Right? Like, this is the problem that people are bringing forward. So anyway, this 16-year-old girl said, it just read Romanian girl, and he put some flirty emojis. I was confused because I only had 200 followers, and it was a private account. She is one of the 2 teenagers who have described to the barely British corporation how Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan approached them online, apparently using a standard formula. Well, yeah, I mean, I assume, like, they would just contact hundreds of girls, right? Like, you do not cater a message for everyone. You just send all of that, cast a wide net and see what bites. It was obvious that we were high school girls, she said. We had our high school in our bio and everything. I think he was just trying to find girls who were as innocent or naive as possible. She showed us a screenshot of the message, which she never replied to, but she says some of her friends did. So, right, the 16-year-old girl was contacted by Andrew Tate, and she showed receipts. Romanian girl Strawberry. Daria, who's now at the university in UK, is the daughter of a prominent Romanian politician. Right, so this is another scandal that's being inspected. The fact that he was trying to blackmail some politicians in Romania. I don't know about that, right? Like, people are passing this suggestion, and this is what has gotten him into troubles with the Romanian authorities. I don't know, but I don't think it's coincidental that he went after the daughter of a high-ranking Romanian politician. I mean, you done fucked it up, basically. I don't know what else to say. You done fucked it up. Daria, who's now at the university in UK, is the daughter of a prominent Romanian politician. She feels able to speak out publicly when others have refused to go on the record. The Tate brothers are currently in 30-day custody. By the way, they got another 30 days. Investigating allegations of trafficking, which both men deny. A video posted by Andrew Tate appears to instruct others how to approach women on social media. This is another part of the scandal that many people don't talk about. He's literally in his own videos bragging about this shit. He's bragging about money laundering. He's bragging about the Playboy method, which the authorities are now investigating him under. I am not, when I started doing the video series, I was like, okay, well, maybe he didn't do it. Right? Because innocent until proven guilty. I went to law school. This is how I'm trained to think. But, like, I'm seeing that the evidence is not just like the police had. Okay, so first of all, they arrested 2 other women, which are his accomplices. Okay? Secondly, they have chat logs that they intercepted. They have wiretaps on the victims, right? So like, some of the victims went to the police, they put wiretaps on them, and they have that. His own videos is bragging about this shit. I'm telling you, I suspect he's going to get convicted. Like, that's my take on this. Maybe he has a thing for sleeping with celebrity daughters. Dude. He was with Jordan Peterson's daughter at some point. I don't know, man. But again, Jordan Peterson's daughter is an adult. This one is 16. I love how Tate is the kind of guy he warns men about. He talks about women all the time. Yeah, like, look, I understand that there is a way that you don't want a daughter to grow up as, but how many of you actually want a son like Andrew Tate? Like, do you want your son to grow up like this and then one day end up in prison? Because I don't think a lot of fathers would be happy. So anyway, she says many men of her age idolize Andrew Tate, who is 36. This is a big problem because we can't wake up 20 years with 2 million Andrew Tates. Yeah, but this is why you need to have all these men. Like all these men need to have symbols and other people to look up to. I mean, you know, the left tried their best in order to cancel Jordan Peterson. Well, without Peterson, like, what are they going to have? If you're a man and you want to be like a cisgender, straight, male, gender type, you know, like, who are you going to look up to? Almost every icon is being canceled. Even in movies, even in fiction. Like, you don't have, like, the masculine role model anymore. So, like, the only person that's going to fit that, that's who the men are going to gravitate towards. You can disagree with Tate in the end, and you should for the most part, but if you have a brain, you can see he is being falsely accused. No, I don't think he's being falsely accused, man. There's just, like, I've seen way too much evidence, including him bragging about it in his own videos. Like, that's the thing. Like, some of the things that Tate is saying, I don't even disagree with. It's like, oh, you need to go to the gym. You need to work out more. You need to be independent. You shouldn't rely on the government. Like, I can't disagree with that. Like, yeah, he's right. But at the same time, the problem that I have, like, initially I started this as being neutral, but I'm seeing the evidence come out. And there's just more and more of it, right? Like, and even then, the guy's a douchebag. Like, morally speaking, leaving the legality aside, right? Because we're going to see at the trial what the investigators have on him and not. But the idea that people look up at him as an influencer, the man is hitting on 16-year-old girls, and again, like, it's not just her saying it to the BBC, she has receipts, right? Like, she went with the chat logs, and is showing, like, look, I don't know why people keep defending him, it's just fucking bewildering at this point. Man, if I was caught doing some shit like that, right, like in an alternative universe, I'm hitting on 16-year-old subscribers of mine, and you have, like, subscribers of mine coming up, and they're like, oh, look what V is doing, and there's, like, some Discord chat logs. How much do you willing to believe that I would not have a single subscriber left? Everyone would unsubscribe from me out of disgust. Like, but for some reason, when Tate does it, and there's, like, chat logs, there's like hidden cameras that capture footage. You know, people go with a wire and they interview. He's bragging about it in his own TikTok video. When that happens, now you don't understand me. He's innocent. It's like, maybe, I don't know. I have a feeling that he's not, though. I have a feeling that he's going to get a conviction. People don't care about men, but this is the type of man that women want. I mean, look, you can have a complete thought. You know, like the type of gold digger that only cares about a man's wallet, that doesn't really care about loyalty or anything like that. That's what men want. You know, like men are going to flock to that. You can have, like, the most toxic, abusive woman in history, but as long as she's good looking, men are going to flock to that. That is the reverse of that for men, right? Like, you can have an Andrew Tate figure, which, by all definitions of douchebaggery, he fits 100%. And women are going to flock to that. Like, when it comes to dating, being a good person has nothing to do with it, right? Like, when it comes to forming relationship, being, you know, like, a pillar of the community doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a date. Anyway. In publicity for his online courses in manipulating and exploiting women, Andrew Tate said, I've been running a webcam studio for over a decade. Over 50% of my employees were actually my girlfriends at the time. I mean, look. What I don't understand is how can you be a right-winger and justify a womanizer? Now, I can, by the way, because I don't consider myself to be a Christian, right? And I do not care about, like, these moralities. Like, all I care is about my family and how I raise my, you know, like, what I do in my house. But what I don't understand is that there are, like, right-wing Christians who's like, oh, the Lord, and they're like, oh, yes, Andrew Tate, and the guy is a womanizer. Like, 50% of his employees he fucked with. Like, is this the type of, you know, right-wing virtuous morality that you want to propagate? Had a co-worker in his late teens who mastered Tate's methods. I then showed him Dick Masterson's on Dr. Phil, which left him shocked. Oof. I haven't seen Dick Masterson on Dr. Phil. From what I understand, like that, you can't even find that anymore. Anyway, he describes his job as to meet a girl on a few dates, sleep with her, get her to fall in love with me, and then she will do everything I say. And then get her own webcam so we can become rich together. Whatever. Gabriela said that a friend of hers received exactly the same opening message from Tate. You are beautiful, isn't a bad opening, and goes on and outline what describes as a perfect example of a conversation. Right? So, like, this is how the Tate brothers would go around. They would find 16-year-old girls. And just so you can understand, right? You're 16. You're still living with your parents, right? And you have, like, this wealthy guy with sports cars and shit starting a conversation with you. I'm really curious, you know, like the people who defend Tate. If you ended up having a daughter and you open her Instagram and you see this, are you happy or upset? Imagine, right? So like, whoever in the chat is defending Tate right now, put yourself in the position of the father of this person. You go to your daughter's Instagram and you notice that Mr. Tate is messaging her. Are you thrilled? Are you excited? Are you happy or are you upset? If you're upset, why? Why are you upset? Why is that a problem? Right? What about your sister? If you have a sister that's 16, yeah, her body, her choice, and you go to her Instagram and you see, you know, like Andrew Tate giving her like "Hello, beautiful" and a little strawberry next to it. Are you upset or are you happy? You should be happy, right? Because he's a good person. Like he's going to enrich her, right? Like, but when you put it like that, a lot of people go like, "Oh wow, Evan, that doesn't sound good." But no shit, it doesn't. It's not great, but it's not illegal. Okay, I'm not talking about the criminality of it, right? I'm talking about why are people supporting him? Not necessarily like for why he says. It's like if some people would say, "Well, look, I like his TikTok video where he tells you to go to the gym." Okay, fine. But like when you want him as an influencer, when you want him as a role model, right? And you get to see if you have a daughter, like do you want other men to do this to your daughter? I'm curious. When she's 16, right? Like, do you want like 36-year-old men to give the strawberry to your daughter on Instagram? Because I for sure wouldn't. Pimping ain't easy. Yeah, it is what it is. Again, like if you're a person like me that's an atheist and doesn't really care about what other people do, then I you know, you don't have a problem with this. Because it's like, well, it's legal, right? So, like, who cares? It's legal. But if you're like a right-winger with the Lord, like the Lord says, watch less anime. What, you know, don't go on Twitch. Okay, well, if you're with the Lord, then the Lord doesn't like this shit. Anywho. We need to go watch RoboCop now. Holy shit, it's 9 and 1 minute. I'll see you guys on my Discord server. And we're going to watch RoboCop the second. Not the first, the second. Good stuff. See you there.